Welcome into the show here on ESPN Plus. I'm Adrian Healy. It's been a while since we heard from our officiating guru, Peter Walton. He'll join us just a little later on after an interesting weekend with VAR, incidents in the Premier League and the Serie A Championship that we'll get into. Steve Nicol, Craig Burley with us. Don Hutchinson is also on board. We have to start with the Monday night action in the Premier League. Liverpool margin at the top of the Premier League.
Yeah, I was sitting watching this game and it wasn't really going Liverpool's way, and I was thinking, who really cares? I mean, no, but I'm being serious. Right. I mean, apart from if it's records you're going for, or maybe it's just keeping the momentum going. Well, because the lead is so big, the big story was, could West Ham scrag a point or whatever, because it looked as if coming into this game they were going to get battered. The one thing I'd say about Liverpool, and the boys can talk about the performance and whatever, the one thing I would say is, the impressive thing is that in a league that they've pretty much won already, against a team that's struggling, when they were losing the game, they went after the win like Man City were above them. So I think from that point of view, the hunger and desire is there, because they still wanted to get that 3 points. They still wanted that win, even though they're going to bag this title sooner rather than later. But I think there's a few worrying signs within their performance in general.
At 2-1 down, they looked pretty flat, Stevie, and then... They
only know one way to play, basically. And tonight, in this game, it was hard work, because things weren't... Everybody was on a stretch. You know, some games you turn up and the passes are perfect, the pace is perfect, it's in the perfect spot, and you make the perfect decision. Tonight, everything was just off, whether it was going forward with the passing or defensively, because initially... the set pieces that West Ham were throwing in, they looked vulnerable. But then they started looking vulnerable in open play as well. So West Ham deserved something out of this game. And without Fabianski making a mess of two of the goals, they could have ended up winning this game.
Don Hutchinson with us. Don, it seems almost ridiculous to say, are there any concerns at all for a team that's having such an amazing season? But 2 goals, they'd only conceded 2 in their previous 11 games.
Yeah, I think Stevie hit the nail on the head. It wasn't a vintage performance. It was a strange performance. I was on social media throughout the game, and just shy of an hour, it was almost like Liverpool were too desperate. At 1-1, they didn't really need to play with that much emotion and desperation in their game. And I thought the more they were desperate trying to go forward, I thought David Moyes' game plan on the counter. And I was tweeting, I just thought something was going to happen for West Ham, because Liverpool were leaving themselves very open. We know the fullbacks play high up at the pitch, but they were really high. They were empty in the midfield on so many occasions. Naby Keita got brought off because he was, bombing on every now and again, and he was, leaving the midfield quite isolated. Fabinho was probably in there on his own because Van Alden was making runs forward. And it just seemed as though, like Stevie said, it was like just because everything was off in the game, it was like they were trying to force things. And then obviously they went 2-1 behind, and then that was a real test. But the last probably period of the game, the last, 10, 15, 20 minutes of the game, Liverpool were really, really good. But it was almost a game that I was watching. It was almost like a game that you were watching the second leg against Atletico Madrid. It was almost like they were chasing that sort of game like far too early. And that'll be a worrying sign for Jurgen Klopp when he analyses that performance and analyses it in a few days' time. They can't do that in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid, because they will certainly pick them off.
Every time Salah got the ball, him and I were looking at each other. He was looking up, he was eating his soup at the time. But the eyes would come up, I look at him and go, he's going to score. Right. I said, he's going to put one in the top corner, because he was doing what he does. He's doing what he does quite a lot, which is the ball's bobbling off him, he's taking bad touches, his passes are a bit sloppy. But then he, as was said in the commentary, I think it might have been Jim Beglin, said, but he continues to make runs. He continues to try and make things happen. That's a plus side from him. The downside is, I think it has to be difficult. I think in some sense it has to be a little difficult for Liverpool. Even though they've got a guy in charge who seems to want to drive them forward. Yeah. When you look at that table, Adrian, and it's so wide a gap, subconsciously, even though you think you're going to go out and try and nail it and get the job done, subconsciously the pressure's not really there.
Do you know the other thing, though?
I think they're trying to get over the line a little bit too quick, because now the number's 4, they can win the league in 4 games' time. So it's like in their grasp. I mean, that's if Man City win all their games. So potentially it could be 3, and that could be Everton away at Goodison on a Monday night. So it's almost like, I've never been in a title race, so Steve will probably answer it better than I would. But I wonder if they're just trying to get there just a little bit too early. They're trying to grasp it.
I think Klopp's got a little. I'm going to say problem. It's not quite a problem. What does he do? Because there is no doubt that recently Liverpool 100% have been going forward far too quickly. When they're going forward, they're trying to do every single thing at 1,000 miles an hour. Now, Klopp surely has to realise this, because we're all sitting watching it, and it breaks down, and that's why, in my opinion, they're actually in trouble defensively. So what does he do? Does he change what has made them successful? Because when Liverpool are at it, at the pace they go at, teams are just folding. That's why they're undefeated. Do you change that?
Well, Don mentioned Atletico Madrid. They've got a couple of weeks before.
That's the big one. Well, they've got Chelsea in the FA Cup as well, which is big for them.
But that makes my point.
Do
they change?
Yeah.
Does he say to them, right, listen, we can't afford to keep doing this, so we're going to have to slow down? Now, is that going to confuse what's made Liverpool so good? That's a tester, particularly in this game. You're one down, but you have to try and win the game. But you can't go gung-ho right off the get-go and leave a big hole.
Right.
That's a tester.
Well, they continue to be on a record-setting pace, don't they? Look at the last 36 Premier League games. You almost have to look at this with disbelief. 35 wins out of 36 now. Just the one draw. That game, of course, against Manchester United. Now, it's been a few weeks. Our officiating guru, Peter Walton, is back. Peter, you timed it well. Interesting weekend, wasn't it? Particularly for those of you watching Spurs and Chelsea, as I know you were for British TV. The Giovanni Lo Celso incident, the stamp on Azpilicueta. Farcical sequence of events that followed where they basically admitted they'd made a mistake a few minutes later.
Yeah, that's most unfortunate, to be honest with you. In terms of the communication, I can see what the authorities were trying to do. The authorities were trying to be open and transparent and say, hey, look, we've made a mistake. Maybe their timing should have been a little bit more acute. Maybe they should have held that information back till post-match, when everybody then can say, well, what do we think? And we can go from there. But if it's just spin back a moment or so, in the actual game itself, and you said, the farce, well, one thing that could have cleared up quite quickly was to ask Michael Oliver, the match referee, to just go across to the monitor and adjudicate and have a look himself. We speak about the time it would take to do that, but he was no more than maybe 10, 15 yards from the actual monitor itself. And so maybe, with hindsight, he should have gone over and had a look at that monitor.
A lot of people would like to see that happen on a regular basis. Overall, Peter, still can't get away from this feeling. How has VAR gone so badly wrong in the Premier League?
Adrian, I don't want to say it's gone badly wrong, because it hasn't gone badly wrong. VAR has made a positive impact on the game throughout the world. We're getting decisions corrected now, and correct decisions made, that last year and the season before we wouldn't have got. What we've had are some high-profile mistakes, errors, and clear judgment errors. And that's what the issue is, especially in England. Yeah, what can we do? Well, first of all, VAR was always shown to be for clear and obvious errors from the match referee, or missed from the match referee, and not as a foul finder. So the VAR persons shouldn't be looking to identify a perfect match. They should be looking to identify clear and obvious errors. Now, we can go back to Lo Celso and say that was a clear and obvious error, which it was. So how do you look at that? You train, you educate, you show people the clips. You actually get those referees together to make sure that on a regular basis they're looking at them, so they can come to some kind of consensus. I do feel in the Premier League in England they need a lot more training, a lot more exposure, and perhaps they look at outside of the group they've got at the moment using VAR. I notice the group they've got at the moment is very small, is very insular. And sometimes it's not a good referee who makes a good VAR. So we may be looking at a skill set here and widening that dimension, so people outside can actually have an input as well.
Yeah. In fact, that VAR operator then went and did another game later that day, didn't he? What's your reaction, Craig, to what Peter's saying? I mean...
Well, Pete knows I like him. I love Peter. But after the weekend he's had and his colleagues, he's taken himself away for at least a month some island and waited till all this blew over. Because let me give you an example, Pete. Stevie said it on Saturday, I think, on this show. Stevie's missus saw the incident and said that's a red card, right? Yeah. That's how blatantly obvious it was. So we can talk about training until the cows come home. And how to your point there, a good referee doesn't make a good VAR operator. So you're telling me that a qualified FIFA official isn't going to be able to look at well, it seems that way, look at a monitor and look at a replay and make a qualified decision? We're in big trouble. This is nothing to do with the actual technology itself. This is to do with incompetent officials. And I do feel sorry for Michael Oliver, because I've always stated the match should be refereed by, the final decision should lie with the match official, the match delegate for the day. That was Michael Oliver. It wasn't. It was Mr. Coote, and he looked at that and thought it wasn't a red card. It was absolutely astonishing.
Look, Craig, I'm not going to argue with you, because what you're saying is perfectly acceptable and perfectly right. All I'm saying is that sometimes, match referees are good at decision makings on the hoof, on the field, in amongst it. And sometimes when you're looking at a TV monitor, you may be looking for too much or too less. So it's a different skill set altogether, and something that's in a VAR has found throughout the world. In other competitions, you'll see, referees who may not referee on that particular league acting as a VAR. But going back to the game itself, and one big thing that's missing in the English Premier League at the moment is the fact that Michael Oliver, who you've already said is a good referee, should be allowed and should be encouraged to referee the game right through to the end.
So why is Mike Riley, the head of the PGMOL, why is Mike Riley not instructing his officials to do so?
Well, one of the reasons he gave at the start of the season was because the Premier League, in his words, not mine, is played at a pace that he doesn't want to disrupt and doesn't want the flow of game to be disrupted by referees going over to that monitor. My counter-argument to that is the fact that it wouldn't take so long to go over to that monitor, especially on Saturday when he's 10 yards away from it. It wouldn't take so long for Michael Oliver to make that decision. Now, if Michael goes over to the monitor and says, yep, I agree, it's not a red card decision, the people, the crowd, the audience know who to blame or know who to vent their anger at. At the moment, what's happening is somebody elsewhere is taking that decision away from the match referee. I think that's wrong. I think they should home in on the match referee. As it says in the IFAB protocol, the match referee should be seen to be making the final decision.
Mike Riley surely has to be under pressure, because at the end of the day, regardless of what your job is, we all have a leader. We all have somebody who's in charge. We all have somebody who has to put things wrong or put things right that are wrong. Mike Riley, as you said, number one, decided that referees shouldn't go straight to the monitor for whatever reasons he suggested. We're now nearly towards the end of the season, and since the very beginning of the season, every man and his dog has said the referee should be going to the monitor, but yet the leader still hasn't made that decision. And the leader, at the weekend, saw one of his men make an absolute pig's ear of a decision, and this leader decided that person who clearly isn't ready to make those types of decisions was then put on the next game. What leader does that?
Pete, I'm not in the business of bashing referees, because I did it plenty when I was a player. In fact, I did it too much. And I know how difficult. I know how difficult it is. And when that recent nonsense with Bournemouth and Dan Gosling and others having a go at John Moss for having a little bit of banter, we all absolutely pasted them. So we're not doing this for the sake of it. But I find it incredulous that we have these qualified officials who seem incapable of looking at a replay. And you touched on this months ago, how maybe some people will struggle with it. And I thought it was a bit of a joke at the time, but it seems to have come true, Adrian, that some of these Premier League officials are looking at replays and they're not understanding what they're seeing.
So can I ask you a question? Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think the standard of your Premier League referee is? Because at the end of the day, we need to have referees. And of course, we all want them to be top class. But are we saying that basically we don't have enough top class people either refereeing the games or behind the VAR, and that's just simply the case? Is that what we're saying?
No. Well, what I'm saying is I don't think we've got enough VARs of a high quality to go around. I mean, you already mentioned the fact that we used the same VAR on Saturday twice, once at the Chelsea-Tottenham game, where we've all accepted that there was a mistake made, and then fast forward 2 or 3 hours, the Leicester-Manchester City game, it was the same VAR. Now, the issue is, do we have enough VARs going around? And clearly we didn't on Saturday. And that is an issue that I would like to be addressed. And as I said earlier on in this conversation, I think we should widen the scope to look who makes good VARs. And it's not necessarily referees. And I just want to come back on one quick thing. On Saturday afternoon, I also watched another game from the Bundesliga. I think it was Mönchengladbach and Hoffenheimer. Felix Bryce, the referee, was told about a potential handball. What did he do? He went straight over to the monitor, looked at the monitor. Yes, he decided it was a handball, went back, gave a penalty kick, and nobody said a word because he was seen to be taking the stance and he was seen to be taking that leadership role, as you mentioned earlier on, Steve. So maybe that's what we should be doing.
Something tells me there'll be more questions along these lines coming Peter Walton's way as part of Extra Time, which you can see every day on our YouTube channel. Now then, AC Milan director Paolo Maldini, after the 1-1 draw with Fiorentina, VAR not calling the referee for that penalty incident was confusing. I was more certain 2 years ago on what was or wasn't a penalty. If this is a penalty, then I really don't know what's going on nowadays. They told us the touch on the ball has to be decisive, which frankly is wording in the rules I have not heard before. We talked about this on yesterday's show, Peter. You haven't had a chance to weigh in, obviously. What was your take on the incident?
That he was wrong in awarding a penalty kick. I'm a little perplexed, to be honest with you. I thought that it was a good challenge.
Just to clear it up, though, it doesn't really matter, does it, if the defender did touch the ball, if he still commits the foul?
Oh, absolutely right, yes. I mean, you can touch the ball, but you can touch the ball by going through a play, and we've seen that many times where you're reckless in your challenge or you're careless in your challenge and you give away a foul. So, yes, you can touch the ball, but you can also foul the opponent at the same time. In this instance, I didn't think the foul had, or the physical aspect of it, had any indication of a foul.
So it's OK for Ederson from Man City to come out, punch a little bit of the ball and completely, and I mean completely, wipe Iheanacho out of the game. But that's not a foul? No, Pete?
That's a foul, Craig. And look, you know, you've asked me about that, and I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that was a foul because in his action of winning the ball, he was reckless in his action. He clearly has no regard to the safety of his opponent there, clatters into his opponents, and we've seen this on many occasions. And we can go all the way back to Schumacher in the World Cup many years ago in France. So, you know, it's happened for a long, long time. I think, and I include myself in this, I think referees are a little bit too lenient.
But here's the problem, here's the issue, and that's another VAR mistake then in the Premier League. We didn't even bother getting to that. Thankfully we brought it up. Here's another part of the wording. What was your rhetoric there about coming out with due care and what?
Due care and attention.
Right, due care and attention. Do you think any goalkeeper in the world can honestly come out to try and diffuse a situation and say, oh, I must come out here with due care and attention?
It can't happen any other
way. It can't happen.
Well, not necessarily, but in terms of his actions, he's in control of his actions, Craig. So it's up to him. It's like a defender. You know, many times a defender has gone through a guy to win the ball. It's a foul. You know, you've got to have accountability for your actions.
Edison and other keepers come out and will punch the ball, and because of the motion leaving the ground, attacking the ball, will then go into the player. How can that be deemed a foul? How is that possible?
Well, again, I'm not suggesting that every time a goalkeeper hits a player or a player hits a goalkeeper, it's a foul. But is it part of that motion? Is it over and above what is necessary to win the ball? Has he been, you know, over enthusiastic to win the ball? And that's part of a referee's makeup to decide on that question. You asked me at the start of it, did I think that was a foul? I thought it was a foul. I thought he was far too aggressive in his actions.
I don't understand that.
This is where the understanding of the game within the laws that are written, with the people that write them, are a nonsense. Do you think, had Man City been going for the title, which they aren't, and Ederson had come out half-hearted, what did he say to Pep Guardiola after? Well, I came out sort of 70-30 because I didn't want to hurt Iheanacho, so I wasn't quite sure. It just doesn't work like that. It's a bit like in the action of playing the ball, you wipe out an opponent. I get it, some tackles are dangerous, some are dangerous and high, but when you're wiping out an opponent when making a tackle sometimes, that's a little word called momentum. Right? And you can't stop yourself. The game is so fast. Pete touched on it. Mike Riley doesn't want the referees going to the monitor because of the pace of the game in the Premier League. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there are other leagues that are just as fast. But in saying the pace of the Premier League is such, hence you're going to get tackles from goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, et al., that are fast and furious and have momentum. The laws, the way they're written, are an absolute nonsense.
Now, another big talking point from a different league over the weekend, Peter, the game in Turkey.
Seem to be dealing with the situation. But, yeah, when it gets out of control like that, that's possibly where VAR can come involved as well, because it's just an extra set of eyes on an instant that you can't see.
Finally, Peter, just
an extra set of eyes. You made me laugh there.
just ahead of the new MLS season, Peter, just wondered finally if there are any new directives for our friends, the referees, to take on board.
Got to be.
Well, there are, and Steve said there's got to be. Actually, there's not a list. You'll be surprised that there's not a list. And Pro and MLS have worked together, and what they are looking at is to make sure that players show the due regard, show the due respect to match officials. It's something that's happening worldwide. It's not a campaign. It's not about picking upon things of an individual nature, but it's about what MLS wants their product to look like on the field. And the referees this year are being told to be quite strong and firm within the law when it comes to disregarding their decisions or showing dissent.
Headmasterish. That's what you're saying. The headmasters are at their forefront.
Well, we'll see if that has any effect on opening weekend, which is just days away. Seattle and Chicago, Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern, followed by LAFC against the New Boys. Inter Miami at 5:30. Both of those games on ESPN. Now, a pivotal weekend in Serie A. It could prove to be Lazio against Bologna, the early game on Saturday. AC Milan, Genoa. Of course, Juventus and Inter Milan, the massive tilt on Sunday. That's the late game on Sunday, then the one game on Monday this weekend in Serie A. However, a lot to talk about. Gab Marcotti joins us, of course, with the coronavirus flaring up in Italy. Real concerns in Italy about how the games will be played this weekend. Chance they may be played behind closed doors, Gab.
Well, not a chance. 6 of the games will be played behind closed door. The reason behind this is that basically there's been an almost in 6 regions there's been a ban on public gatherings. So not just sporting events, but concerts, the Milan Fashion Week, even Sunday Mass has all been called off. Schools are closed, bars are closed. Any places where people gather, they really want to stop that until they manage to isolate the contagion. So as a result, 6 games, as you mentioned, including Juventus Inter, will be played behind closed doors, as will this coming Thursday Inter's game against Ludogorets in the Europa League.
Is it the right move, Gab, to have it played behind closed doors rather than just postponing and looking for a fresh date?
The problem is there are no fresh dates. The calendar is already very congested as it is. There's, in terms of some lower division teams, some of those games have been postponed. But the problem is when you're talking about clubs like Inter, like Juventus, like Atalanta, they all have European commitments as well. And so it becomes very difficult to go and find a later date, especially when, frankly, we don't know when that later date might be, because we don't know at this time how long it's going to last. This restriction this is scheduled to continue until March 1st, but it could well be extended beyond that.
What might the impact be, Gab, on the title race? I don't think it's going too far to say that. If Juventus against Inter is played behind closed doors.
Well, I mean, certainly it's, the boys in the studio might have played behind closed doors. It obviously does affect you because it's an entirely different environment to be in. More practically, it affects the clubs, in terms of box office. Milan have already said that They've already started the process of refunding all their tickets for their game this weekend against Genoa. There's been talk, possibly, in if this continues, in later rounds in the Champions League and Europa League, of maybe they can play some of these games in neutral ground, perhaps in other parts of Italy where no such restrictions exist. But right now, that's just an idea. No question it'll negatively impact the teams involved, but I think equally nobody's really talking about that, because obviously what's at stake with this epidemic is much more serious.
Good stuff, Gab. If you want to hear a lot more of Gab and Jules, the Gab and Jules podcast, the place to go. A new edition available on the ESPN Pod Center and Apple Podcasts. Mikel Arteta, the Arsenal manager, after Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's match-winning performance against Everton. He's our most important player. No doubt the impact he has in this team. We will have to convince him to stay with us. Gab, Aubameyang, he's 30. Barcelona seem to be pretty interested in his services just a few short weeks ago. What are the chances you think Arsenal can keep him?
Well, I think it obviously is going to depend on a number of factors. I think Arteta's statement that, Aubameyang is their most important player, I think it really lays down a marker, because it says to the club, we need to go out of our way. He's already one of Arsenal's highest earners. I think he's the second highest after Mesut Özil. But the issue is, this is a team that's rebuilding. And, they're rebuilding to be competitive in a couple of years' time. And if keeping Aubameyang is going to mean, a long-term contract that takes him up to when he's, 34, 35 years old, and ties you up with a ton of money, that may not be the right thing for Arsenal. So I think it's going to depend on what sort of suitors out there, who's looking for center forward. The Barcelona thing, I wouldn't worry about that too much. The last thing they need is another guy pushing 30 in the mix. I think that was more of something in January. But you know what? If he waits around till the summer, he's got a year left on his contract, I think he'll be attractive to a lot of teams. And I think that's where Arsenal would have to worry.
Well, he's done very little except score goals, hasn't he, in North London? Once again, Premier League's joint top scorer with 17, at level with Jamie Vardy, ahead of Aguero and Danny Ings.
It's a difficult one, because if you don't tie him down in a long-term contract on big money, it's going to take a shed load of money to replace him. And look, Arsenal will know there's no... If they were to lock him down for another 3 or 4 years, that's pretty much the end of his career, or the end of his value in the transfer market. So you're not getting any value back, but what you're getting is proven quality. Now, to go out and replace his goals and his performances is going to take the best part of 100 million. I think the difficulty is convincing, and I think the point Gab was touching on, is convincing Aubameyang that they are going to buy players in the summer, they are going to be improving, they are going to be in title fights within the next year or two.
I don't think they've got an option. They
have to keep him,
They have to keep him. He's the captain, he's absolutely the talisman right now. And how are they supposed to try and get better and attract other players if they're letting their better players go? So I don't think they have an option here. And I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it's the right thing for him as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think he wants to? He's 30, he may have one big move.
At his prime, he was scoring lots of goals for Dortmund, and all the big, so-called big teams weren't interested. So why would it any different now? He's at a place where he's loved, he's doing fantastic. Why wouldn't you stay there?
I mean, it's a big enough job that Arteta has with the recruitment. It's a big enough job without having to go out and find a replacement for him, when you've got to find a replacement for quite a few others.
Hope you can join us for tomorrow's show. Of course, we'll be reviewing all the action in Tuesday's Champions League games. These are the odds for Tuesday's round of 16 first legs in the Champions League. The odds to advance overall have Bayern Munich and Barcelona as heavy favourites. Both of them away from home, though, in those first legs against Chelsea and Napoli. Let's start in Naples, Gab. Napoli seem to have turned at least a bit of a corner over the last couple of weeks. What are you expecting in this one?
Well, look, everybody's tremendously excited. Lionel Messi is coming to Diego Maradona's adopted hometown. it's going to be a packed house. There is enthusiasm, but I also think people are realistic that Napoli aren't the team that beat Liverpool back then. So back in the fall. So I think realistically over the two legs, you got to go with Barcelona.
And Lionel Messi just seems to have hit his stride. I think we could fairly say that after the weekend.
I mean, it was against a team near the relegation zone, but it was still
right
mesmeric from the little fella. I agree with Gab. I think the one thing Napoli can be is competitive at home and at least give themselves a chance when they go to the Bernabeu. They are playing better. They're up to 6th. They've got a little sniff of the Champions League places. And Barca haven't travelled particularly well in the knockout stages in recent years. So there is some hope, but it's slim.
Meanwhile, Chelsea and Bayern, odds makers obviously favour Bayern heavily. Do you see it that way?
I would certainly have Bayern as slight favourites, but I wouldn't say heavily. I saw Bayern recently against Leipzig, and we talk about Lewandowski and Gnabry. They actually didn't do particularly well going forward, and they've been losing goals. So I think Chelsea's got a huge opportunity here, and I think they can win this. I think they can win this leg at home.
You can win the first leg.
Yes.
Do you see it that way?
Lampard went back to a back three at the weekend. That meant Alonso came in. He's much better as a wing back. Obviously played very well. Chelsea played well. Their big problem is when they're on top of teams, you need to take their chances, and particularly against this Bayern team, who also played a similar system at the weekend against Paderborn, bottom of the league, and did not look comfortable. I'm sure Hansi Flick's going to make some changes. The bottom line here is they've got to find a way to snuff out Lewandowski. You can't snuff him out.
Yeah.
If he gets a couple of away goals, then you're absolutely stuffed. But I think there is an opportunity, like Stevie said, for Chelsea to win the home game.
Yeah. The other end, do you play Giroud or Abraham is an interesting one for
I think he'll play Abraham if he's fit.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right, we will be back tomorrow to review all those Champions League games. And away we go. See, that wasn't Sebby at all. Away we go.
Where you going?
Where you go?
Where you going?
Away we go. Extra time. Thanks for your questions. We got Peter Walton with us. We got Don. Stevie, you take the first one. Fahad, if this form continues, can we say Robertson and Trent are the best left-back, right-back partnership the Premier League has ever witnessed? There's been some good ones over the years, but...
Well, the problem is they don't play left-back and right-back.
Which may be the flaw in Fahad's play.
They're actually more like midfielders.
Yeah.
They don't really play full-back. So... Listen, the way Liverpool play, if other teams were to try and emulate it, then they would take a bit of beating, put it that way.
Don, care to weigh in? Best one we've ever seen in the Premier League?
I think best attacking fullbacks. I think defensively there might be some contenders. I think if you think of Ashley Cole and Lauren at Arsenal, they were superb. Patrice Evra, Gary Neville. But these two are...
Dennis
sort of rewriting the position, really. As Stevie said there, they're not traditional fullbacks. They're guys that play high up the pitch. They get so many assists. They're forward-thinking fullbacks. So I think the role's completely changed, but there's some good contenders out there.
When Digital Boys asked me to do a combined team from the current Liverpool team and the 99 United treble-winning team, and I said pretty much the same thing. It's different. It's a different game now. But if you're looking at all-rounded players, and that includes defending, then I had the two United fullbacks in there, Gary Neville.
Yeah.
And a player who I played against, I don't know, I think Stevie would have, and I thought he's one of the most underrated players of the generation was Dennis Irwin. Dennis was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
Wasn't the quickest, wasn't the biggest, but was clever, just clever player. So people just forget these things. I just think it's all like...
Dennis could take a free kick and all, by the way.
Right-footer playing at left-back.
I mean, if Beckham hadn't been playing in the same team as him, Dennis would have taken a lot more free kicks.
Yep. Winterburn and Dixon, would they be up there?
They were great as well.
Full-back partnership.
See there. That's a good shout, by the way, because the two of them are the opposite of what Trent and Robertson are.
Correct.
They're more defensive full-backs, whereas these two are more attacking full-backs.
All right.
Horses for courses, the game's changed.
Exactly.
Peter, talking of horses for courses, Adam, how bad does VAR have to get before it's consigned to the dustbins of history? This is Adam's question.
Well, Adam, it won't be consigned to the dustbins of history. What you'll see after this Saturday, when IFAB meet in their annual meeting in Belfast, is maybe a little tweak in the way the protocol is written with VAR, and I think you'll find that VAR will be used for a long, long time to come.
And rightly so.
It's not the technology.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing.
Muppets that are using it.
I know. Here's the thing people forget. Before VAR, all we used to do is shout and scream at referees who got decisions
We did.
wrong.
Yep.
But now...
How quickly we forget that.
We do. But now we're screaming at the people that are behind VAR, but there's no question we're getting more decisions right than we used to.
What tweaks are we talking about, Peter, just briefly?
Well, I think I'll be looking at the offside and how we interpret offside in terms of the law, so that the law falls in parallel with the technology we've got nowadays. Possibly looking at handball and how the handball law has been brought in with VAR conditions as well. But not too much more than that. And obviously, people say about consistency. Consistency will come with experience and will come with time. And I think that what Steve has said there is absolutely true. VAR has made a positive impact on world football. It's isolated incidents that people get upset about.
See, the Lo Celso incident was a prime example of how people have been enraged about that the referee, the video assistant referee at that time, not coming to a sensible decision, which was a red card. However, without the VAR there, it would have been 11 v 11 anyway, because Michael Oliver missed.
Right.
He missed the incident at full speed.
Yeah.
And so, the only reason people are getting incredulous about it is because there was a gazillion replays and he missed it. Had VAR not been there, Michael Oliver missed it anyway. So.
Yeah. All right, moving on. John, you take...
I've absolutely no idea what point I was making there.
Sounded...
You're not the only one.
Sounded perfectly reasonable.
In fact, I started it, I was quite enjoying it, and I thought I'll just keep going.
Don, Edge, I want your take on this first. He's played for quite a few teams in the Premier League. Who's a teammate you would have paid to watch play, Don?
Quite a few, actually. Probably Johnny Barnes in his day was different class, and Stevie played him with him in his heyday. What a phenomenal player he was. Someone like Di Canio as well at West Ham. I mean, he was a brilliant player. There's been many sort of standout guys, but I think probably those are the first two that come off the top of my head. I think Paolo Di Canio at West Ham and probably Johnny Barnes at Liverpool.
A couple of good shouts there. Worth the price of entrance money alone.
No.
Barnesy,
No?
Right.
We're both lucky. We're all lucky, all three of us, to play
with some pretty good players.
We're all lucky to play with some great players, all the boys, Don, Stevie, and myself, Hullet and Zola and all the Italian boys and Larson. But I'm telling you, there's not a player on this planet I'm paying. There's
a flaw in Ed's plan, is
there's not one player on this planet I'm paying.
Involving the forking over of money.
I jump over the turnstiles and get in.
At the
and he's not going to a game either.
I'd have to say I would be struggling myself. If I get a comp, I'd definitely go.
Right. We'll come back to that theme perhaps for the last one, but Zaboka, would Stevie Nicol eat minced turkey instead of minced beef? I don't know if we can go an extra time without addressing your
It depends.
Your intake.
It depends whether they like it or not.
Well,
We'd
do
have a
you?
go at it.
Yeah?
Yeah, we'd have a go at it. It's going to take some beating, though.
Minced turkey.
Minced beef's going to take some beating.
Yeah.
Aye.
So
Minced turkey's the lean approach.
I'd have a go at it.
365 days in any given year. What's your how many times? 360?
Oof.
Minced
Well, it's
beef?
300 and something anyway.
Right.
Probably up there.
Maybe for Thanksgiving you can do minced turkey.
No,
instead of minced
no,
beef.
no. He said the other week, he said he'll have mince for Christmas dinner, given the choice.
Given the choice, aye.
All right.
They do say though that too much red meat is not
Bad
good for you.
They do?
Well,
I mean, as a prime example, that's not correct.
Let me tell you, I was at the doctor last week, right, and I had a checkup. And
did he
everything
say?
come back magic.
Yeah.
Everyone was
Fighting
tip-top.
fit.
Aye.
A picture of
everything.
health.
Everything was tip-top.
Yeah.
So figure that one out. Don't eat red
Put
meat.
you in the scales and said
Don't
it's
eat red
tip-top.
meat.
Yeah. All right, Zeke, finally.
He said, how much do you drink? He says, oh, I have half a beer a week.
I actually stepped on the scales and the voice went, One at a time, please. One at a time.
Are you sure? Yeah.
Pete, is red meat? I tell you what, is red meat good for your eyes? Because if it is, maybe
Who said that?
over here. If it is, maybe I'm just thinking. Don't they say carrots is good for your vision?
Yeah, they do.
Pete, get on the carrots. Quick.
Hang on, let's put these on.
Yeah.
See if you can see me better there.
I thought we're going to come up with that when they have their meeting at the weekend. Everybody's got to eat carrots.
Tell you. Medical journals, we are. And who needs to read respective medical journals? We can just watch extra time every day. But
We can throw out all granny tales any day of the week.
Tip-top shapey, as he said.
Stevie and Craig, for you, Zeke wants to know just how Scottish is Don? Question mark. I don't know how you measure Scottishness.
That's a tester, isn't it?
Well, well. The trouble is like, I think what the question is related to accent.
Very possibly.
I would
very
imagine.
possibly that's why it's...
However, me and my wife are Scottish, but all my kids talk with an English accent because that's where they got born. But,
Yeah.
You know, should ask Don himself how, but I'm sure he.
See, it's a strange
don't
one.
know
There was
you
only
measure-
somebody that could answer this.
How do you
Don.
measure Scottishness?
See, it's weird. It's weird. I'm the same. See, my two kids were the same as Craig. They were both born in Liverpool. My son thinks he's Scottish and my daughter thinks she's English.
Yeah.
So
I
go
said to
figure.
my son, my oldest son, I said, right, where are you from? And I'm not bothered. Don't get me wrong. They don't
Well,
play.
you're not bothered, are you?
No, I'm not bothered. If I say to my oldest, are you Scottish or English? He said, I'm English, Dad. I don't get angry about that because I'm not. But that's just what he feels.
I think the real test, we've already found out, Don would actually pay to see someone else play, which suggests
What's that got
perhaps...
to do with being Scottish?
That might be the English in me coming out there, Adrian, I think.
Yes. So
No,
Don,
100% Scottish. 100% Scottish.
yeah?
All 100%. All my pictures of me and my dad when I was young, all dressed in Scotland kits. Always wanted to play for Scotland. Made me massively, immensely proud to play for the club, for the country as well. And I just felt it from an early age.
Yep. Do you eat mince and tatties though, Don? That, I think is the true test.
True test.
I eat everything. I think I'm like the guys. Anything goes with me. I don't mess around with food. Just if it's nice, I eat it.
There was a lot of guys in the team around the time Don was involved. Matt Elliott, English accent. One of the most famous, Scott Gemmell.
Yep.
Scott Gemmell had
Neil Sullivan.
Because he'd grown up in Nottingham.
Yeah, Neil Sullivan. Scott Gemmell grew up in the Midlands, had a Midlands accent, but his dad Archie, one of the most famous players that played for Scotland, scoring that famous goal in the '74 World Cup. It's, you know, it doesn't boil down to accents. That's the bottom line.
All right.
Some people would have it that way, but it doesn't.
Well, we solved that then, didn't we, Zeke? Thanks for the...
But we would blame them though if we went.
Hold on.
If we didn't have a good result, we'd blame
Ray
the English.
Ray Houghton's got a Scottish-English accent and plays for Ireland. How do you figure that one?
That's true. We will return tomorrow.